Matt, I hope you're enjoying this series. As Matt already stole my intro, penultimate part, best word. It's the preaching team's favourite part of a series to do because you get to say a fancy word like that. And we're loving our practice series. And this week, I don't know if you're part of a life group, we've been doing the Bible course. And this week, it was the first time kind of gathering for our young adults life groups together. And we were reflecting on which part of the series has stood out to us. And you know what? It was just incredible. We've done 7 parts, part 9 next week with Bryony as we finish. And just amazing how different practices and different ways of us being helped to follow Jesus better in practical ways and ways to practice and put into practice that this spoke so differently to everyone, which is amazing. And I hope it's helped you too. Well, before I tell you what this part of the series is today, I just want you to think about some of the things that you see on your phone, maybe, or on your computer, or maybe in a magazine, the things that are advertised to you through your social media or different ways, the fact that your phone might actually be listening to you when you talked about that pair of shoes or that place to go on holiday. And the things that appear sometimes are things like a great cup of coffee. You know, the advert will be like, if you come and get this coffee from this coffee shop, it will have a heart, it will make you whole, and it's only £7.84. You only have to remortgage part of your house to have this coffee. Or maybe you see an advert for a sofa, and this sofa is just like, well, you know, whatever your health challenges are physically, you know, however like tired you are, you know, that you need, when you get on this sofa, everything changes. You know, it's just like you relax, whatever it is, and maybe you've gone and bought that sofa. Tell me later if it was really that good. Or maybe it's the cinema. Come and escape. Come and watch this movie. Immerse yourself in another world almost. Or maybe, and you can maybe picture the Jess Glynn music as you see this next picture. It's a Jet 2 holiday. And you know the music as they take off and land? Okay. And it's on every single advert ever. Yeah, you know the one. And maybe it's like, if you come on this holiday, it'll solve everything. Well, all of these things, all of these companies, all of these items, obviously there's nothing wrong with any of them, but they're trying to sell something. They're trying to sell us something which is ancient, which is God ordained, and this is today's practice, is Sabbath. They're saying if you have this thing, you will find rest. You will be able to stop. You will find refreshment. But actually, when we think about this practice today of Sabbath, this word Sabbath comes from the Hebrew word Shabbat, which is to stop, to cease, to be done. It's a 24-hour period every 7 days to rest, working 6 days, Sabbathing on 1. And what these marketing companies are trying to say is they're trying to say, hey, if you buy this thing, you will be able to do that. And some of these things help us at times, and there's nothing wrong with doing those things, but the irony is you can't buy Sabbath. You can't buy the rest that can only be found in God. And it's a primal human ache for rest. We want rest in a busy world. We want to know refreshment in the midst of other things. But it can also, this word, when we look at the word Shabbat for Sabbath in the ancient Hebrew, it also means to delight, to worship, and to rest. And so today I want us to think about these 3 movements of Sabbath: to stop, to rest, to worship, to delight, and to worship. But I want to remind us of an invitation that Jesus gives to all of us, and maybe this invitation is for you today. It says this in Matthew 11, verse 28 to 30. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I live the way I live, Jesus is saying. For I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And then Eugene Peterson, the author of the Message paraphrase, puts it in another way, which isn't on the screen, but maybe you just want to close your eyes and receive how he puts it. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy on you or ill-fitting. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. I don't know if any of those words resonate with you. Are we tired? Are we busy? Are we tired of busyness? Well, of course we are. Essentially, in our world right now, we live in a level of low-grade exhaustion. It's our new normal in the society that we find ourselves in the Western world. But Jesus is inviting us into Sabbath. It's an invitation to come to him every week, 24 hours, to take that space, to stop, to rest, to delight, and to worship. And so let's think about stop first. And we're going to spend a bit of time in Genesis 2, right in the creation story. And it says this, it's going to be on the screen. It's in English and in Farsi, if you don't know what the lower language is for our Farsi-speaking brothers and sisters. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. On the seventh day, he rested from all of his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. God, the God of the universe, creator God, stopped. He stopped. He deliberately took a pause. And I always thought, why did God stop when I was a kid? Why did he need to? Well, I believe that he was building a pattern and a way and a rhythm for us to live, because he knew that we need to stop, that we are not all-knowing or powerful, all that he is, but we are human and fragile. And you might think, yeah, but I'm like a type A person. I'm super high capacity. God Sabbathed. You might be like, yeah, but I'm a doer. I've got lots of stuff to get done. God Sabbathed. Yeah, but I've got little kids and a business. God Sabbathed. And sometimes that decision to choose to get in rhythm with him, in doing so, it can be costly. It's a decision that we have to sometimes pause certain things or shift when we do certain things. But God, the creator, weaved this into the fabric of creation. This was from the beginning. A lot of people sometimes might say, well, you know, in creation operates in this way or that way, or because of the stars or something. No, it operates all around God. It operates all around him and this rhythm that he put in place in this first 7-day example, and everything else falls in line with it. But yet we're the only ones who sometimes as humans, we're like, well, we've got a better idea. And it doesn't always work out. For example, your obvious thought next would be the French Revolution. That's what you thought of when you woke up this morning. I need a coffee. Let's think about the French Revolution. Yep, just maybe on a Saturday you think about that. But the thing is this, in the French Revolution, which wasn't going very well, by the way, because it was a revolution, the government introduced a 10-day working week, which didn't work. And basically, they tried to literally change basically have like 11 days and weeks and all this kind of thing. And it turns out that if you, in the middle of a revolution, if you then ask people to work really harder, they don't like it. But they did have energy to keep revolting. So do what you want with that. But the thing is this, it's just one example throughout time where humanity we've tried to say, hey, we know better. We can find other ways, other rhythms. And even now in our current life and society in the Western world of our smartphones and our cars and electric this and electric that and things via Wi-Fi, and put your heating on now at home via your phone. Obviously don't today. That would be a severe waste of money. But the thing is, this is like life is just getting busier and busier. How are you busy? How are you busy? How are you busy? I don't want my life to be defined by busy. But the rhythms that God has put into the world, even into us, even into like the day and night, our sleep, the tide, the seasons, the life and the noise of summer and spring, and the quiet of autumn and winter. Even our breathing, our inhaling and exhaling. There's rhythms in it all, and God has woven these things into the fabric of us and creation. We are not a machine. We are human beings made in the image of God. And there are rhythms that he is inviting us into, and one of these rhythms is Sabbath, to rest and be refreshed. You know, the philosopher H.H. Farmer put it this way, which I don't know if he was a farmer, but he said this: when you go against the grain of the universe, you get splinters. When you go against the grain of the universe, you get splinters. That actually when we choose to do that, it's painful. You know, there's negative repercussions of not resting, not Sabbathing, of whether it's burnout or stress or trashed immune systems or brain fog or frayed relationships. But then the fruit is incredible. There was a study done in America of a bunch of Christians who regularly Sabbathed, and it was proved that they lived for 11 years more than the average American. And one doctor counted that actually when you counted up all the time they Sabbathed, it equaled about 11 years. So whichever way you spin it, Sabbathing, resting well in rhythms with God, add to our lives, literally in figures. And just finally, when we think about this idea of stopping, maybe you think of like a stop sign, I do, or a stop junction where we have to stop, that's the law. But then there's give-way junctions where sometimes in give-way junctions, some of us are a bit naughty because you're sort of meant to stop, but then you can see sometimes, because it's a wide junction, like you can see no one's coming, so you keep going. Sabbath is not a give-way junction. It is a stop. Whether there's traffic coming or not, it's not, oh, if I've got a bit more energy. No, we need to Sabbath. We need it in our rhythms to be energized and refreshed. I know for me, I can count on one hand, thankfully, in my life since I was 18, since I started working properly after college, where the times that I've skipped Sabbath and I know the consequences. Because I know I've been sustained, I've been refreshed by having that day, that 24-hour period to stop, to rest. And for someone with a very busy mind like me, who's very easily distracted, that actually that is incredibly important because I know my mind gets tired very quickly, and for all of us, it'll be very different. But we need to put these rhythms in place. And maybe sometimes that means trimming down certain things we do or doing other things at other points. So we have that time. Second thought is this, rest. That actually the stopping helps with rest. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing, and he rested from all his work. And then later on in verse 3 it says, because on it, the seventh day, he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. God rested. The all-powerful, all-present, all-knowing God took a rest to show an example to us. And maybe for you, rest is like, oh, I have a nap, or I do this, or I binge watch something on Netflix. But resting with God is something more than that, because we're resting from working, but we're also resting from not thinking about work. The author, Abraham Herschel, of the book The Sabbath, says, we rest not just from work, but even thinking about work. Scientists have proven that even our body can go through the same stress emotions sat on our sofa thinking about work than just as much as when we're in the office or whatever work looks like to us. A really practical thing I do is if ideas or thoughts or problems to solve come in my head is I just write them down and put them on a to-do list, set a reminder, send myself an email, whatever it might be, 1 minute done. I'm not having that interrupting my Sabbath because I know how my brain works, and I'll just I'm gone for an hour. Ideation, I've come up with a new plan to change the world, whatever. I know me, but do we, each of us understanding what does it mean to guard our Sabbath, to protect our Sabbath? And the thing about rest, it's an act of resistance. It's an act of resistance. It's an act of defiance. In the world that we live in that works more and more than ever, and people still aren't happy for whatever reason. It's an act of defiance in modern society because in the Western world, there's these two gods called accomplishment and accumulation. I need to go and accomplish this in the workplace, and I need to go and get more stuff. And really what rest does, it says, actually, I've done enough work, and I've got enough stuff. And to actually say, God, you are enough for me. I'm going to rest in you. I love what Jesus says in Mark 2. He talks about the idea that the Sabbath was made for man, but not man for the Sabbath. I.e., this is to serve us, help us to find rest. And for some of us, that is always a Sunday. Maybe for others, not just the church staff, but those who volunteer and serve in different ways. Sunday doesn't feel like a restful day, so it's about building that Sabbath rhythm into other days, finding that 24-hour period. Everyone's working pattern is different. Not all everyone's work here is paid. Some people are retired. Some people spend a lot of time volunteering. Some people are full-time parents. There's housework. There's all of these things. But it's within the periods of whether we work 4 and 3 or 5 day a week, whatever it is, but to find that 24-hour period, to have Sabbath, to rest as this act of resistance. And just to be careful that we don't get caught up in legalism, that we don't create a pattern that then we have to follow and make others follow, but it's actually about following the rhythms of what God has put into humanity and in creation. Because actually for a lot of us, our family day, that day is we want to protect. Maybe it's a Saturday, maybe it's another day. We're like, this is the day I'm going to protect as Sabbath. Some of us have more than one day off a week. Great. Well done. Which is really good, but that's probably not the majority of people's lives when you build in all the other things that happen around the house and other things that go on. But how can we protect that time? And when I think about being maybe legalistic is a strong word, but this idea of let's not go and build another thing that then we're making other people do, but actually finding rhythms that work for us as a family or an individual. Because I remember when I was growing up, and particularly because of how my dad's upbringing was in the church background he was from, it was very legalistic. I had to wear uncomfortable clothes, sit in boring church, because it wasn't exciting like our church, and engaging. And be uncomfortable and be bored in a cold building. And then, on the way home, we weren't even allowed to buy milk. Well, can I suggest that, which there was thinking behind it, because it's like, let's not make someone else work on a Sunday. But the reality is this: most shops are open 7 days a week. So can I encourage you to think differently and say, I'm choosing to, so you might want to think about it, not to buy from shops that don't give their staff a day off. Because actually then we're caring about other people's rest. Because actually if they don't get days off, that's not okay. Because in our society, Sundays might not be sacred anymore and haven't been this century. But let's be a people who live lives that are sacred because of how we do Sabbath. That actually our lives will speak louder. This is not a Christian nation anymore. Our lives will speak louder of how we rest, how we say no to the busyness. That speaks volumes to people. And that actually something shifts, not just in picking a day, but in our walk with God. The practice of Sabbath to cultivate a spirit of restfulness within us. And some of the things to think about is things like actually we're shifting from hurry to peace, busyness to margin, burnout to sustainable pace, noise to quiet, distraction to clarity, isolation to solitude, crowds to community, grasping to gratitude. Sabbath is our secret weapon in an ever-busy world. We have an entire day, time set aside, and it will be enough for us to rest, to stop, to fight the internal and external forces. And Sabbath is an act of resistance. Let's watch this video from a family in the life of our church community of how they began to practice this.
To me, Sabbath is a rest. It's a chance to kind of like recover time to remember what God's given us and everything, all the blessings that He's given us.
For me, it's that too, but it's also a chance to have a day off from jobs, a day off for having some fun, and whether that's fun doing stuff together as a family or doing our own thing.
So since our early days together, we've talked quite a lot about how to make sure that we get a chance to rest. And we found it hard to build in a pattern to our lives that allows us to kind of like stop and take a breath and recover from life. And even weekends, we tended to find that they were full up with things that we were doing, people we were seeing, church on a Sunday. And then in December, as part of the Leadership Academy, we've been reading a book called The Emotionally Healthy Leadership by Pete Scazzero. And one of the chapters in the early part of that book is about Sabbath and about the importance of taking time to rest. So we talked together about what that might look like and how we might be able to incorporate Sabbath into our lives and how we might be able to carve out some time from our diary in order to take that time to rest and recover, get energy for the week and spend time with God.
When we were chatting it through, we were like Saturday to Sunday really isn't going to work because, we both serve. And if anybody's seen like the cafe queue on a Sunday sometimes, and it was really hectic behind there, so we just kind of recognised that wouldn't quite work. But so we sort of said, let's go for Saturday at 6 o'clock. Friday. From 6 o'clock till Saturday at 6 o'clock. And we have really found that's worked. But what we do recognise is quite a lot of work that goes into preparing for that rest. So there's lots of jobs to be done in preparation for that, because I can't relax unless the jobs are there for me to do. I can't sit and relax. So yeah, there's quite a lot of preparation that goes into getting ready for it, but it's really, really worth it. And you do help with the jobs, don't you?
Yes, I do help with the jobs. And then so the pattern of the day for us looks like around about 6 o'clock on a Friday, and we make sure we've finished our actual job work, and then we have a drink together, maybe cook a meal together. And we on Saturday morning, Matt likes to get a lie in, so that's part of her rest. Whereas for me and Joseph, we tend to be up and playing either together or separately. Then around lunchtime, we'll take the time to spend some time with God and thank Him for everything that He's given us. And then the afternoon is free for us to do something together as a family or whatever that might look like.
So this Saturday just gone, Joseph and I had a cinema date. That's something we do together and something we both find relaxing-ish.
I think it's changed the shape of our week. We're busier than ever in our lives, and yet we have this kind of weekly cycle where we get to stop. We know that Sabbath is coming, and we know that gives us some strength. That gives us some strength to go through the week. And we quite often find on a Wednesday, once like we're over that kind of hump of the week, we're like, oh, can't wait for the Sabbath. We can't wait for Friday night to come around, because we know we've got a rest coming.
And Joseph is also very up for the concept of Sabbath. So a few weekends ago, I asked him on a Saturday, should we get some homework done, Joseph? And he said, Mum, we can't do homework on the Sabbath. It's a job. And I was like, well, that's got a point. So we just deferred homework to Sunday, but he's really bought into that and is obviously quite excited that he doesn't get asked to do very much during that 24-hour period.
So yeah, I think there's like that weekly cycle to our lives that wasn't there before. Perhaps before we were focused on when our next holiday was going to be, or when we were next going to have a weekend off, and yet now we've got this weekly cycle where we can stop for a day and enjoy relaxing, recognise what God's given us, which is a really important part of it for us. It's about enjoying the blessings that God's given us. It's about taking space to enjoy what God's given to us and to thank Him for what He's done.
So we'd wholeheartedly recommend, if you can do it, then definitely build it into your lives. It's the benefits are massive. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael and Natalie. And there's so many great thoughts that you shared about preparing well. It's that shift from a day off to an intentional Sabbath, an intentional time of resting together. And there might be some things that you're like, oh, cooking is work for me. But actually for other people, that's a joy and something they enjoy doing together. It might be creating something. It's something you really enjoy. And for other people, that might be real work. And different for different people. But finding the rhythms of Sabbath for ourselves. And the third thought is to delight, to stop, to rest, and to delight. Someone once said, because the world is full of ugly things, not ugly people, ugly things, we need the Sabbath to fill ourselves with beauty. Jesus encourages us with this idea that there will be trouble in this world. I don't know if you've been encouraged by that verse. But that we live in a broken world. Even when you pick up your phone and you look at the 24-hour news cycle or doom scroll or the things that are being thrown at you that are going on in the world, there is a brokenness around us. But then in John 15:11, Jesus said, these things I have spoken to you that my joy may be in you and that you may be full of joy. And even in a broken world, we can find delight. We can find delight on Sabbath. Even in sadness, Sabbath can help us still delight in God. What I love in Genesis 1 verse 31, it says this, God saw all He had made and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning and that was the sixth day. And then obviously it goes on to talk about day 7. He rested, the verses we've been reflecting on. God delighted in his creation. He delights in us as his creation. And so the simple delight thought is this: delight in what God has made. Delight in who God is. Delight in others. So think about his creation, but think about his greatest creation people. Delight in who God has put in our lives. And then delight in who God has made us to be. We get to delight. Can I encourage us with 6 very simple things we can do to practice delight during our Sabbath? Number 1 is feasting, eating together, enjoying food. Second is community. Brian, he preached on the practice of community the other week, but actually regularly spend time with our larger group of friends or community, this church community. Gratitude, finding ways to be thankful. What am I thankful for this week to God? Play. You might be like, I'm not 10. I don't play. But like, what brings you joy? What's a fun thing to do? Adults are allowed to play. Young people, you're allowed to play. It's okay to like go and do something fun together on your Sabbath, like, and do it in life. Time with your spouse or friend or best friend, like our closest relationships. And then nature. Let's get outside, see what God has created. Because Sabbath helps us journey. And Isaiah puts it in such a beautiful way in Isaiah 58. It helps us to see the delight in creation, how much God delights us. So I'd encourage you to go and look at that scripture. But just as the band come up and help me, the thing that Sabbath helps us do as we delight is that we're reminded of his love. We're reminded that God is love. And one of Jesus' greatest commandment, not one of, his greatest commandment to us, it says in Matthew 22, is to love God and love others. It's to love God and love others. When we don't Sabbath, it's really hard to do either of those. When we don't Sabbath well and have that intentionality with him, because what happens is we struggle to be like obedient to God and follow him well, and then we struggle to experience his love as well because we're exhausted, and it leads us to make more mistakes and sin and different things. And then when it comes to loving others, well, it doesn't get any better. I don't know if you ever met someone who's hungry and tired. So they're hungry and tired. Maybe you met them already today. Maybe they live in your house. But the thing is, this is like, we don't do well, do we? And I know we all have those moments, but when we don't rest well, when we don't take these rhythms that God has woven into the creation of the world to rest, to every 6 days working, 1 day resting, these rhythms to have 24 hours of rest, we will struggle to love God and love others. Because the thing is, Jesus stretched out his arms on the cross to die for us. He's the God who enables us to have Sabbath. He's the God who makes a way for us to rest in him. And when he died on that cross and rose from the dead 3 days later, it's out of his love for us, out of a great sacrifice for us, so that we could have life in all its fullness, and so that we could experience more of who he is and then share that love with others. And so